We have 3 full days ahead of us, and as we work to plan the summit, I couldn't help but reflect on the work, talent, and passion of all those that make it possible. This is my 11th year with TPPF, and every year the Texas Policy Summit gets better and better, and so does Texas. That's why we're all here. TPPF's mission is to promote and defend liberty, personal responsibility, and free enterprise in Texas, and the nation by educating and affecting policymakers and the Texas public policy debate with academically sound research and outreach. The Texas Policy Summit is about driving positive change in the state of Texas and the state we all love and call home. The work here we do produces results that makes Texas a better place to live, to work, to raise a family, to start a business, and to call home. And the work we do here could not be done without some very important people. So first of all, I would like to take a moment to recognize some of the amazing people we have with us here today, starting with the TPPF Board of Directors. So if you're on our board, if you would please stand so that I can recognize our Chairman, Kyle Stallings, our Chairman Emeritus, Dr. Jim Leiniger, Tim Lyles, Ernest Angelo, Tracy Baker, Don Bennett, Doug Deason, Vim Head, Stacy Hawk, Chaz Neely, and Brenda Payovich. Thank you so much for joining us. We're honored to have with us some of the brightest stars in Texas, our elected officials. These men and women play a vital role in our republic, in our representative system of government. They bring ideas into the laws that guide our society, and they join us today because they share our belief in the ideals of free enterprise, liberty, and personal responsibility. If I've missed your name from being here, I apologize, but we will introduce you later on. But if you would hold your applause until everyone is recognized, we will soon, of course, have our great Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick here. Joining him in the Senate is Texas Senator Adam Hinojosa. And welcome, Adam. And then on the opposite side of the Capitol, it seems like nearly a quorum, but our amazing Texas House of Representatives members, I heard better side from somebody, Representatives Janice Holt, Helen Kerwin, Don McLaughlin, Joanne Schaffner, Chairman Brad Buckley, Caroline Harris Davila, Terry Leo Wilson, Jared Patterson, Carissa Richardson, Andy Hopper, AJ Louderbeck, Matt Shaheen, and Katrina Pearson are all here. Please stand and be recognized. Welcome to the Texas Public Policy Foundation. This conference is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, fellow combatants in the battle for freedom that is waged in state legislatures across America and in the halls of Congress itself. Today's lunch sponsor is J.P. Morgan Chase, and you will see their name and many other sponsors on the screens during today's lunch and in the lobby. Our sponsors make the Texas Policy Summit possible, so thank you very much for your support. I'd also like to recognize the many great young adults and members of TPPF's Liberty Leadership Council who are here with us today. This is the network of young professionals that I've been told I'm too old for, but that we have 8 council chapters throughout every corner of Texas who are engaged to fight for good policy not only here in Austin, but in their own communities. Would any of our LLC young professionals here please stand so we can applaud your attendance and recognize you for your service to liberty and public policy. You can't be a member after they start calling you sir, I think. The work we do here at Texas Policy Summit is reflected in our Liberty Action Agenda. The Liberty Action Agenda is a set of critical reforms that must be made to promote and defend liberty, personal responsibility, and free enterprise in Texas. Number one on our Liberty Action agenda for the 90th Texas Legislature is vital to the future of Texas. It is simple and direct. End taxpayer-funded lobbying. The Texas Legislature should no longer allow local governments to hire unaccountable lobbyists with taxpayer dollars. Local governments are now in Texas spending as much as $112 million a year to lobby the state government. That is your tax money being used to get more tax money. Local governments are lobbying state government for more government. And the obvious outcome of this activity is higher taxes, more spending, and as our own James Quintero stated, the continued Californiization of Texas governments. At TPPF, we believe that taxpayer-funded lobbying violates the principles of constitutional order and limited government. It creates a perverse system of incentives and rewards that undermine the authority of the state legislature and state government. It creates an uneven regulatory landscape, a spoils system of special rules that favor those who pay to play, but different rules for different cities and counties, which deters investment and harms the state overall. I'd like to share with you our latest video on taxpayer-funded lobbying, which we aim to end in the coming 90th Texas legislative session, starting next year.
When you pay your taxes, you probably expect your money to go towards roads, schools, public safety, and services that improve the community. What most Texans don't expect is for their tax dollars to be used to hire lobbyists, whose job is to oppose the very policies Texans support. That practice is called taxpayer-funded lobbying, and in Texas, it's a big problem.
Taxpayer-funded lobbying happens when cities, counties, school districts, and special districts spend our tax dollars to hire contract lobbyists who then go to the Texas Capitol to fight for more government. In 2025, almost 5,000 local governments spent as much as $112 million to lobby the legislature. Instead of spending our tax dollars to police the streets and fill potholes, they're instead wasting our money to lobby government for more government.
These lobbyists don't just share information, they actively influence state lawmakers using tactics common in the lobbying world. Fund it with public money. That includes lavish receptions and events, expensive dinners, political donations to lawmakers they support, and even funding challengers against lawmakers they oppose. Tax dollars are being recycled into a political influence machine that ordinary citizens can't compete with. Even more troubling, taxpayer-funded lobbyists frequently oppose policies that Texans overwhelmingly support. They've worked to block or weaken property tax reform and local spending restraint. They prevented votes on school choice and education freedom. They fought government transparency and public information reforms. This isn't about one bad actor. It's hundreds of government entities across Texas pushing to protect higher spending, higher property taxes, and bigger government.
Local governments are using your tax dollars to block reforms that Texans want. They oppose things like property tax reform, education freedom, local spending restraints, and requiring more transparency and accountability. Local governments are using taxpayer dollars against the taxpayer.
The solution is straightforward. End taxpayer-funded lobbying, prohibiting the practice of using public money to influence lawmakers. Increase transparency so taxpayers can see exactly how their money is spent when lobbyists are involved. And reform local government spending authority so lobbyists no longer have outsized influence over budgets and debt. Texas has the opportunity to restore accountability and trust by making sure tax dollars serve the public, not the lobbyists. Taxpayer-funded lobbying isn't just bad policy, it's a misuse of public money, and it's time to end it.
It's now my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Greg Sindelar, the Chief Executive Officer of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Greg joined TPPF in 2007 and has served as our Director of Operations, Chief Operating Officer, Executive Director, and now CEO. In these roles, he's managed the Foundation's incredible growth, more than 25% per year, while he oversaw the policy, our work in Washington, D.C. and throughout the nation, and the implementation of new strategies through his role as CEO. He oversees all of TPPF's policies, communications, development, and engagement efforts. Greg's also an appointee by Governor Greg Abbott to the 1836 Commission. He's a graduate from Texas A&M University. He lives in Austin with his wife, 2 daughters, and I can't forget brown Labradoodle. Please help me welcome Greg Sindelar.
Rob, that was perfect, exactly how I wrote it. I'm so grateful for you. And it's true, I have a Labradoodle, but she's my favorite child. She listens the best of all of my children. Good afternoon. Welcome to our 2026 Texas Policy Summit. This is like the most amazing few days of the year for us, and I know there's a lot of old friends and familiar faces, but there's also a lot of first-timers here. So I'm really grateful to each and every one of y'all that you've taken the time and effort to be here as we talk about the future of Texas. And the reason that's important is because we are united in our purpose. We are united in our mission to promote and defend liberty, personal responsibility, and free enterprise, not only in Texas, but across the nation. And we're united in our desire to make Texas the best place to live, to work, to raise a family, start a business, and call home. The work we do here is important, and I believe that the stakes have never been higher. But before we get to the work ahead of us, I think we should take a moment to see how far we've come and celebrate some of the amazing victories that we have achieved. I think as conservatives especially, we kind of move on to the next thing. We don't take time to really realize how far we've come. And it's really hard to see, though, when you're in the thick of the fight, but Texas has come really far. And I believe TPF has been an instrumental part in transforming Texas. And since our founding in 1989, thanks to Dr. Jim Leiniger, who's here today, and Fritz Steiger, literally the founders of TPPF, the policies we advocate for have forged the foundation of the Texas that we love today. A Texas that is thriving economically and is the best place to live while other states descend into economic stagnation and social chaos. Our work and our values have played a pivotal role in forging our future. And some might say, well, you've done a lot, but there are, of course, battles that just can't be won. The opposition is too powerful, too organized, too wealthy. Some dragons we cannot slay here in Texas, but I beg to differ. Today, education is no longer a monopoly, and they said that it couldn't be done, that the teacher unions and education lobby was too powerful. But we believed in our ideals, and we believed in our children, and through hard work and persistence, we have won that initial battle. So today, parents are empowered to choose the best school for their children, and finally, money is following the child. But we won because the people in this room and those who came before us were never discouraged. They knew their cause was just, and their passion, commitment, and ideas were soon championed by leaders who led. We're honored to have so many of them joining us this week. I see Chairman Brad Buckley sitting right in front of me. You're about the only person I can see, Chairman. The lights are really bright. But if I think about who has led the fight for school choice in the state, no one deserves more credit than you, sir. So thank you. But we're honored to have so many of these leaders, including Governor Abbott later tonight, Speaker Burrows tomorrow, and of course, here in a little bit, we'll hear from my good friend and a warrior for Texas, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Under his leadership as Lieutenant Governor, the Texas Legislature works for Texans to make our state a beacon of light for the rest of the country. And we're fortunate to have so many great leaders in the state as our allies and supporters. And with your work and their leadership, TPF has helped secure victories that were unthinkable, not just 10 years ago, but even 5 years ago. Our wins are worth celebrating, but our wins must also be defended. And 2026 is a pivotal year for the future of Texas and the United States. We should all heed President Reagan's warning that freedom is never more than a generation away from extinction. It is as true today as it was when he said it. I will say there's a caveat, though. The erosion of freedom began decades ago. The one-generation countdown to freedom's extinction has been merely paused. The great policy wins of recent years must take root and be built upon, or they could be wiped out in an instant. We all know the upcoming elections could shift the balance of power in D.C. and even here in Texas. Regardless of what happens, though, Texas can, must, and will ensure that we continue to advance forward. And we need to ensure that Texas can always act independently on matters that are properly governed by state law and policy as a sovereign state of the Union, as our founders intended. And we must secure Texas for the future, and to do so, we have to go on offense, and that is why we put this conference on every year, to ensure that we are aligned and we're moving forward together. Because the work of the 90th Texas Legislative Session, which our legislative friends who are numerous today will tell you, it actually doesn't start in January, it's already begun. It means more than drafting policy and legislation. It means building support and getting ahead of issues before the well can be poisoned by our opposition. But it's not just offense. We also have to have a strong defense. As an Aggie, you think I would know that strong defense wins championships, and maybe someday we'll figure that out. But we know that ideas win. And we also know that when the other side can't win in the marketplace of ideas, they will try to divide us. They will divide us using dissent, division, and discouragement, and they're trying to sow dissent and splinter us right now. Minor policy differences are trumpeted as irreparable fractures in unity, and they want us fighting. They want dissent. They want us to feel alone. They're actively trying to divide us with the toxic ideologies of discrimination and anti-Semitism, trying to claim that is what we stand for. But those ideas must be completely destroyed and rejected. And they're trying to discourage us. They'll paint us as disappointed and disillusioned. They'll cite anonymous sources with fabricated stories of buyer's remorse, and of course the media, no offense to our friends in the media here today, but they will put them on every night to make us feel like we are alone. And they'll try deception. They've introduced, championed, and enacted extreme policies that are toxic to our ideals, yet claim that it actually upholds our values. And we were warned of this long ago. In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 7, Jesus said, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but underneath are ravenous wolves. By their fruits you will know them. A rotten tree bears bad fruit." We have seen their fruits in their laws and policies, and they are rotten to the core. In some cases, they have shifted so far, so fast, that the latest crops of rotten fruit have ripened rather quickly. And we've seen the chaos they create as they race to the bottom of every single slippery slope. And their extremism is quickly discrediting their own ideas of socialism, wealth confiscation, and the disarming of law-abiding citizens. Their own words become the most effective campaign ads actually against them. And as Sun Tzu said some 2,500 years ago, do not interfere with an army that is returning home. But he also had another bit of wisdom, one that gives me great hope, and which I hope you'll remember over these next few days. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. There will be battles. Those who have enjoyed power, strangled liberty for decades won't go down without a fight, and bad ideas have a way of coming back around. They'll rebrand them and try to sell them, confident in their belief that communism, socialism will finally work when they are the ones who are in charge. But fortunately, we know who they are. We know their playbook. We've seen this before. But more importantly, we know who we are and what we believe in. We know these ideas are right because they honor the human spirit and human dignity. And if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles, and we have hundreds of battles ahead. And while we take great pride in the bravery of the heroes who created the Republic of Texas, we need not look far for inspiring examples of courage. And so it's my honor to bring to this stage one of those examples today to give us a TEX Talk. That is Senator Lilly Téllez from Sonora, Mexico. Sonora is located, for those of you who aren't geography majors like me, in northwest Mexico, sharing all of Arizona's southern border and part of New Mexico's. Lilly is not only a Mexican senator, but also a former television journalist widely recognized for her firm and critical stance against alleged collusion between political authorities and drug cartels, as well as her unwavering commitment to democracy, security, and anti-corruption. In 1997, she became the first journalist in Mexico to report nationally on drug cartels on television, and in 2025, the first senator to denounce internationally that Mexico had become a narco state, exposing alleged links between government officials and organized crime. Senator Téllez speaks truth to power in a place where power is held by criminal drug cartels, narco-terrorists who extort and intimidate with ruthless violence and infiltrate and corrupt the government with money produced by inflicting misery through drugs and human trafficking across the world. As she knows all too well, this danger is real and not hypothetical. And this danger is today's reality, not a historical anecdote. In fact, a little over a month ago, in February of 2026, the armed forces of the United Mexican States launched an operation to capture one of the most vile and evil criminals, not just in Mexico, but in the world. When the operation was over, the narco-terrorist known as El Mencho was dead. In a just world, he will ultimately be forgotten. But let us remember instead the soldiers, the National Guardsmen of Mexico who laid down their lives in that operation. Let us understand clearly, they sacrificed themselves upon the altar of freedom. They did so as heroes and patriots, and Mexico ought to celebrate them because they are her defenders. As we talk about security and safety and liberty and what that means for us here in Texas and across the country, we should talk about the freedom they died to win in Mexico. And this is the world in which Senator Téllez speaks truth to power. And when she speaks, she does so with great courage and at great personal risk. So please help me welcome to the stage Senator Lilly Téllez.
Thank you. Thank you. Distinguished members of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, dear friends of Patria Unida, thank you for your support for me to be able to be here to speak with you. Ladies and gentlemen, I warned that Mexico was drifting away from the free world and sliding into a new and dangerous kind of regime, one in which socialism, corruption, and cartels merge into a single power structure. Mexico is not simply going through a crisis of national security. It is undergoing a regime change, an experiment in building what I call a socialist mafiocracy, a system in which authoritarian politics, an omnipresent state, and narco-terrorism are fused into one. And yes, this is happening on the southern flank of the United States. Let me start from a shared reality. The fentanyl epidemic in this country is not just a statistic for us. The same structures that flood American streets with drugs are the ones that turn Mexican towns into war zones. The chain is one and the same. Armed terrorist groups, corrupt politicians and officials, transnational networks, and finally, devastated families on both sides of the border. One of the clearest examples of this hemispheric threat is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, led until recently by Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, known as El Mencho. This organization evolved from a drug trafficking group into a multinational enterprise of terror and a parallel authority in Mexico. It not only managed global supply chains of fentanyl and other drugs, it also acts as a de facto authority in many regions of Mexico. Cartels like these decide who can run for office, who can open a business, and even who is allowed to live in a given town. They collect taxes through extortion. They control strategic routes, and they maintain militias prepared to conquer and defend territories. But they are not invincible. On February of this year, El Mencho was finally killed by the Mexican military in an operation in Jalisco supported by the United States intelligence that helped pinpoint his exact location. He is dead, but his cartel's operation is still thriving in alliance with Morena's government. It is impossible not to ask why, after so many years of suffering, violence inflicted by this cartel, did the Mexican authorities finally decide to go after him, only when President Trump put sustained pressure on our government? The answer is simple. It was never a question of capacity. It was always a question of political will. The problem has never been the Mexican military. The problem has been the Mexican commander-in-chief, the president, who does not want to give the order to dismantle the cartels. That is why when Mexicans are asked about the idea of a United States military intervention on our soil to eliminate the cartels, most reject it. But at the same time, an overwhelming majority support close, robust cooperation between our countries to defeat this common enemy. We Mexicans are patriots. We want to fight and win our own battles. The problem is that the Mexican Morena government has been complicit with cartels, allowing them to grow stronger. The clearest evidence came in the days after El Mencho's death. Armed militias emerged almost simultaneously in multiple states to avenge their dead leader. Across large parts of the country, Mexicans lived through scenes of war and terror. Millions had to shelter in their homes, afraid of being caught in the crossfire. Roadblocks with burning vehicles appeared in dozens of points. Highways were cut and entire cities were paralyzed. Businesses were burned. Dozens of security personnel were attacked, and dozens of our brave soldiers paid with their lives in ambushes. The fact that a criminal organization can deploy this level of military power and territorial disruption is only possible because it has the direct support of those in the government. It is clear that we are no longer facing ordinary organized crime, but a fusion between criminal cartels and political power. The socialist ruling party, Morena, chose to govern with the cartels instead of against them. In many regions, the state and the narcos are no longer enemies. They have become partners in a shared project of control. During elections, cartels have become the hidden campaign coordinators, deciding who can put up posters, who can hold rallies, and who will not live long enough to see Election Day. In the 2024 elections, more than 40 candidates were murdered. We held elections, but in too many places, the true electoral authority was the cartel's command. This is the backdrop against which the United States made a strategic choice. When the United States elevated Mexican cartels as a national security threat and built a comprehensive shield, escudo, the Trump administration broke with years of dangerous complacency. President Sheinbaum said she was proud of not being invited to the shield with other Latin American presidents to fight against cartels. The United States elevated the fight against organizations like El Mencho's to the level where it belongs. President Trump signaled that cooperation would no longer mean press releases and photo opportunities, but real pressure, real intelligence sharing, and real consequences. But I am here to offer a warning. The strategy of the Mexican regime is to navigate the Trump administration, to wait it out. They hope that a future administration will relax the pressure and allow them to return to business as usual. They are willing to deliver A few symbolic blows against certain cartel leaders, but not to break the narco-political pact they themselves helped build. Just today, right now, Mexico will have a new Secretary for International Affairs, Roberto Velasco, right now at the Mexican Senate. He is the same person that had meetings with high American officials in Washington, D.C., who promised more cooperation, but back with President Sheinbaum, sabotages the work between our countries against the enemy. Because the heart of the problem is this: the people who should protect Mexicans and who should be your partners in dismantling narcoterrorism depend on narcoterrorism to maintain their own power. This is why I insist security cooperation with Mexico should be continued, not only on how many tons of drugs are seized or how many capos are extradited, but also on whether the Mexican government is willing to respect the rule of law and dismantle the narco-political networks inside the state. There are sitting senators, governors, including some in border states with the United States, and even in Sheinbaum's cabinet members with links to organized crime, and yet not a single prominent politician, narco-politician from Morena has been prosecuted. No one. We are in the early stages of a problem that can become as big as Venezuela. Dear American friends, some in Mexico are raising our voices, but not without consequences. Last November, we were horrified by the assassination of Carlos Manzo, a courageous major who stood up to the cartels and denounced their ties to the federal government. He was executed in public while participating in a parade with his family. That image, a local leader gunned down in the middle of a civic festivity, deeply moved and horrified Mexicans. We are in an extreme situation. I say it as someone who, before entering politics 8 years ago, spent 3 decades as a journalist and who survived an assassination attempt 26 years ago because I was exposing politicians and narco-corruption. In all that time, I have never seen the level of danger facing the opposition in Mexico that we see today. We face a double threat from the cartels and from their allies in the government. This is why conservatives in the United States must recognize Mexican conservatives as natural allies in a common fight. We are not asking you to fight our battles for us. We are asking you not to close your eyes to who we are and what we are facing. The momentum that President Trump has given to the hemispheric fight against narco-terrorism must also focus on stopping narco-politics. We must go after those narco-politicians that betrayed Mexicans and our partners. What we ask of you is this: do not treat a narco-authoritarian regime on your border as normal politics. Morena is the alliance of authoritarianism and cartels. Do not accept short-term concessions in exchange for long-term catastrophe. And always remember, in Mexico there are millions of brave people who want to see terrorism fall as much as you do. Thank you.
Senator, thank you for joining us and for being an inspiration for us all. And now it is my great pleasure and privilege to welcome Lieutenant Governor for the great state of Texas, Dan Patrick. Governor Patrick was first elected Lieutenant Governor of Texas in 2014 and re-elected in 2018 and 2022 and soon 2026. Since he last joined us at the Texas Policy Summit, President Donald J. Trump named Governor Patrick to chair his important Presidential Commission on Religious Liberty that will deliver recommendations to the President to preserve and expand religious liberty in our country. He's a preeminent voice for principled conservative politics, both in Texas and across the nation. Governor Patrick has been called the most effective lieutenant governor in Texas history. He's a great friend to TPPF and everyone in this room. Please help me welcome Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you all. Please have a seat. I now knight all of you in this room. I brought 3 special things for you today. The key is if you're standing when I'm leaving, then I know I will have done a good job. What did I bring these for today? I know you're asking this. By the way, Senator Téllez, who was here, and I mean this in all sincerity, that's a courageous person. She literally puts her life on the line. We don't know what that's like in America and Texas, but you have to admire her greatly. For me, if I say something like really controversial, the worst that happens is a quorum report writes about it, which is okay because no one reads it anyway. Is Scott Braddock here? Oh, I forgot he doesn't work, unless it's after 11 at night, so we're all good. So why did I bring my wand? Boy, these lights are bright. Because today, I want to share some bubbles with you. Let me see if I can get this in here. Oh, it's tough when it's wiggling. There we go. I have good bubbles for you today. And in a little bit, I'm going to pull out a different wand. This one. Because I'm going to burst a few bubbles. All right? I want you to remember the bubbles today. The good, the bad, and not the ugly, but the good and the bad. First of all, when Greg was out here talking, he talked about all the accomplishments that you all have had. And he's absolutely right. Without the people in this room growing every year, sold out this year at every event, without the people in this room, Texas would not be the miracle that we are today. That's just the bottom line truth. That's not a phony baloney pat on the back. You've invested your treasure, you've invested your time, you've invested your ideas, and this organization has grown over time from when Jim Leininger and a few others started it, and Tim Dunn and a handful of people, and had a handful of employees and a handful of ideas into the greatest conservative think tank on the planet today. So give yourselves a hand. I'm only as good as the senators around me. As you know, I have 5 openings this year because we had a conservative become a chancellor of a university. Isn't that a great thing at Texas Tech and Brandon Creighton? And we have another conservative who was controller at Texas A&M. Think about that. Howdy. We have Brian Birdwell, who's now in a high position at the Pentagon under Secretary Hegseth. And we have Robert Nichols, who we honor, who is retired. And then we have Mays Middleton, who I think will be your next Attorney General. So I have 5 openings. And then we have one more opening. And she's running here today. Where's Lee? Lee Wamgans? Or would you stand up? I can't see you. Oh, there you are, Lee. I can't see you at all. Please give Lee a hand. She will win in November. I'm not here to talk politics because I know I'm not supposed to, but I am going to talk politics in the realm of what it means to policy. And then Adam Hinojosa, I understand you're here. Adam, somewhere? Adam, stand up. Adam Hinojosa, our second Hispanic Republican in history to serve in the Texas Senate. That was one of my goals when I was elected. We didn't have an Hispanic senator, ever. And we got Pete Flores elected, and now we've gotten Adam elected, and he had a great session. How many bills did you pass? 41 bills as a freshman. Now, a really bad performance, excuse my sniffles, would be if you passed less than 10. I passed 6 as a freshman. But there's hope, you see. See, because when I became a senator, I came in with a little different view, a little different time, when we still had some moderates in the Senate who didn't see the things the way you see them, for the most part, or I saw them, and I appreciate their service. But when I came in, there were 8 there was myself and 8 new senators. And the first thing we did was change the rules so that the majority that we were had a chance to rule. It was called the blocker bill. Back in those days when I was a senator, you had to have 21 votes to bring a bill to the floor. We only had 20 senators. That's the most we've ever had. That meant we had to go to the Democrats every time we wanted to pass a bill. Whether it was a Second Amendment bill or a pro-life bill, whatever the bill was, a tax cut, didn't matter. I'd go over there sometimes and say, at that time, the current mayor of Austin was a senator, and he was the caucus chair, I guess, in the second session. And we're not letting you bring that bill up today. Madison talked about the tyranny of the minority, and that's where we were. And we do work across the aisle with our Democrats. About 98% of all the bills we pass have Democrat votes, maybe 1, 2, some unanimous, like property tax cuts, which I'll get into in a little bit. It's good to work on a bipartisan basis. We like to get a bill out of the Senate and send it over to the House. If it has a few Democrats on it, it's a good chance we get a little bit more Democrat help over there. But make no mistake, we do not water down conservative legislation because we don't have to get a vote. We have the majority, and when you're the majority, you need to act like the majority and pass the conservative legislation that the voters ask us to pass, because that's why we're the majority. It's real simple. The Democrats are really good at sticking together. Sometimes, and now I'm talking about Washington, the Washington Republicans aren't always good about sticking together. But here in Texas, I've got a great Senate. So the good bubbles, a lot of good bubbles to talk about in the last 10 years since I've been lieutenant governor, because of the people around me, because of all of you. I could go through a long list, but one I want to hit first. When I spoke to you last year, when session started, and the year before, I talked about passing school choice. We passed school choice. I've been trying for 10 years. And quite frankly, there were Republicans, rural Republicans for the most part, and I respected their view, but they had a view that it wasn't good for them and that their people really didn't want it. No, the superintendents didn't want it. The people wanted it. The parents wanted it. But we finally got it passed. Now where's Jim Leininger? Dr. Jim, would you and your beautiful bride, Cecilia, stand up, please? Just stand up. We would not have school choice today without the Leiningers. I don't know how many millions you spent, how many times you supported candidates who only ended up disappointing you. We didn't disappoint you. Let me tell you about the success of school choice. I always believe this. I always believe that if we pass school choice, all those who voted against it for all those years would come back the next year and say, I'm with you now. I always believe they'd come back and say, we need to expand the program. And that's what's going to happen next session. You know why? Because we had 274,000 parents apply for 100,000 spots. 274,000 parents of all income levels, of all color, of all school districts say, I want to choose the best choice for my child. This is a significant victory for Texas. And for America, it will change public education. We want our public education system to be great. We want it to be the best in the country. We have a lot of great schools. We have mostly good schools. And we have a few bad schools. No parent should ever be forced to send their child to a bad school or a school that does not fit their child. I'll give you this number just so you repeat it to your friends sometimes when they ask you, but you're taking money away from public education. It's absolutely not true. Our budget for public education this year, about $40 billion. How much for school choice? $1 billion. We didn't take it away from the education system. We just created new money because of our growing economy, because of conservative policies, because of businesses coming here and creating jobs, because 1,600 people a day move here, because we went from 18 million people to 30 million people. Our sales tax revenues have flowed in, growing our economy. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what Greg Abbott and I, our main job is to keep you safe. Number two, to create jobs. We are the miracle in the world in terms of our economy. We're the 7th largest economy. We will soon be the 6th largest economy. We are a nation state because of conservative Republican principles. That's why, and because of all of you in this room. That's a good bubble. How about another bubble? We have passed every pro-life bill you could possibly pass before Roe v. Wade was overturned, thank God. But we had taken abortions down in my tenure from 2011 when I passed the sonogram bill that said every woman going into a Planned Parenthood should have a right to see that sonogram because they were not given that right before. We cut abortions that year from 80,000 to 50,000, and by the time we passed the heartbeat bill before Roe v. Wade was overturned, we gotten abortions down in this state down to about 15,000 a year. Almost eliminated them. Since we passed the sonogram bill in 2011, according to the Health and Human Service information, there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 little Texans born that may not have been born. That's a big bubble. We passed every second amendment bill you could pass that the NRA doesn't even call me anymore. We passed, under my tenure, campus carry, open carry, constitutional carry. You can carry your gun anywhere you want in Texas. Think about what the Iranian citizens would be doing in the streets today if they had had guns. The Ayatollah and that regime would no longer be in power. We have to have a gun to protect our families and to protect our rights. Think about all the things we've done for business, the business courts. I could go on and on. The things we've done from a cultural standpoint that I'm proud of. We do not let men go into the ladies' room in Texas. We do not let boys play girls' sports in Texas. But it took a while. Remember in 2017, when I was accused of passing the bathroom bill. Dan's so terrible. Lois Cole, of course, carried that bill. We got beat to smithereens. I mean, it was just, I was getting crushed. Even by some Republicans, even by some businesses. Well, Dan, you know, you shouldn't interfere in our business. Let's make that choice. And I said, okay, so tell me, in the C-suite, are you letting men go into the ladies' rooms? Well, no, but I said, well, I don't want them to go into a ladies' room anywhere because it would allow perverts to go into a ladies' room and say, oh, I'm in transition. I can be here. No, it was wrong. We were ahead of the curve in 2017 in Texas. It took about 6 years, 7 years for the rest of the country to figure it out, and there's still some idiots in blue states that haven't figured it out. So Texas has led in so many areas, so many ways. Big, great bubbles. Property taxes. I hear about property taxes all the time. I ran for the Senate in 2007 to lower your property taxes. I had a really hard time as a senator getting anything passed because at that time the county judges and the mayors controlled the votes in the legislature. They didn't want us interfering. Do you know back then when your appraisal went up, your tax bill went up the same for the most part? If your appraisal went up 8%, your tax bill went up 8%. If your appraisal went up 10%, it still went up 8% because that was the cap. They could raise you 8% every year and there wasn't anything you could do about it. But if they went over 8%, then there had to be a vote. They never went over 8%. School districts were growing at 8%. On and on and on. I saw that as a problem and we tackled the problem when I became lieutenant governor. But there's more to do. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But today I can tell you, because of the $200,000 homestead exemption, and I want you to put this in perspective. Is there anyone in here over 65? Okay. I think a few. Anyone over 65 who lives in an average home in Texas no longer pays school property taxes for the rest of their life. We eliminated it when we gave them a $200,000 homestead exemption, and when I became lieutenant governor in 2015, the homestead exemption was a measly $15,000. So seniors, now if you live in a $700,000, $800,000, $1 million house, you may pay a little bit, but the average senior doesn't live in that house. The average senior lives in a home somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 in Texas. It's gone. We've eliminated property taxes. And within the next 2 sessions, I believe we can eliminate all school property taxes for everyone, including those under 65. We're going to get it done. I'm going to talk about that, though, a little bit in a moment. Again, forgive my sniffles. Now I want to talk about, I'm not even going to get my bad bubble wand out. But you know, I should, because I don't want you to forget this. And I say bad bubbles, it's just a matter of making sure that we don't forget the message, okay? I mean, this is kind of silly, you might say, but when you leave, you won't forget. Okay, let me get that back in there. So we good on good bubbles? We're good on good bubbles. I could go on for an hour and a half telling you everything we passed. I mean, I had 40 priority bills this last session. Priority bills are number 1 to 40. We passed about 1,500 bills, so the bottom 40 numbers are the most important. They're not all my priorities. They're your priorities, senators' priorities. We get ideas from everyone. We passed all 40 in the Senate. Since I've been lieutenant governor, I've had 40, gosh, 5 times. I think we've had about 160 priority bills we've passed, all but 2. And most of them have gotten to the governor's desk. The Senate leads. I love the House. By the way, there was some controversy about our current speaker a year ago, how he was elected. But once he was elected, then I decided I want to work with him. Because I can tell you, I had no hope and help working with the previous 2 speakers. I'm just sorry. It's just the way it is. But this speaker reached out and worked with me in a way that I've never seen before. And we passed more conservative legislation in this past session than in the history of Texas. And so I do thank the speaker, and I thank all those conservative House members who made it happen. Give them an applause. I can pass all the bills all day long, but if they don't get through the House, which they didn't get through the House the last time, the session before. So, what's a bubble we need to be concerned about? One, I want to go back to property taxes for a moment. And I know we have, and I have so much respect for everybody on the board with TPPF and everybody, you know, I think it's 80 or 90 employees now. We get so much great information from them. Greg is great. Brooke was great before him. And so this isn't a complaint. This is just an explanation. There's been this push that the only way we can eliminate property taxes is through compression. And what is compression? Compression is reducing the tax rate. And when you reduce the tax rate, we're not taking away money from school districts. We're writing the check for you. For every $1 billion that we spend in compression, reducing the tax rate, for every billion, we save a homeowner $30 a year. Pretty costly. Something else about compression. Compression is just a statute. If we were to lose to the Democrats and they were in charge of the state, they could take all of that money back like that. And your taxes would go right back up. For every $1 billion we spend on homestead exemptions, we save the average taxpayer about $130 per billion. So if I spend $10 billion on compression, I saved you $300. $10 billion is a lot of money. If I spend $10 billion on compression, I save you $1,300. So we've increased the homestead exemption by spending less to get more. And to put this in perspective, in 2017, because once we pass it, we have to keep doing it. Except if it's compression, anyone can stop doing it any legislative session and take all that money back. Homestead exemption, you all voted for it in the constitutional amendments last November. Every time we increase the homestead exemption, the voters vote for it over 80%. They get it. In 2017, to reduce your property taxes, the state of Texas budget spent $3 billion. $3 billion. It's a lot of money. This year, we spent $51 billion for property tax relief. But I know what you're saying, Dan, my taxes are still high, they're still going up. Well, that's because your local property taxes are increasing. Governor Abbott has a plan focused on that. We'll work with him, he'll work with us, we'll work with the speaker, but we're going to continue to reduce your property taxes. We need to push down on the cities and the counties from raising your taxes, taking away some of the savings we've given you. But to eliminate all school property taxes for everyone, it has to be through the homestead exemption for two reasons. It's guaranteed in the Constitution, you can't take it away, and for every billion is $1,300 compared to every billion for compression is $30. So of that $51 billion, $37 billion is for compression today and only $14 billion for homestead. If we move some money from the compression side to the homestead exemption, I'm telling you folks, within 2 sessions, we'll eliminate all school property taxes for everybody. So that's a good bubble, but we've all got to come together on the bubble that we cannot eliminate property taxes with compression, and we cannot eliminate all property taxes totally, which I know a lot of people say, please do that. I'd love to. And I can do it next session if you want. To eliminate all property taxes, all we have to do is increase the sales tax from, which is 6.25 cents, to 25 cents. That's what it would take. You know, we don't have an income tax. We'll never have an income tax. We put a stake through that heart in the Constitution. Only 2 things we have, sales tax and property tax. So if you eliminate all property taxes, 25 cents on everything you buy. If we eliminate all school taxes, just that, we'd have to raise it from 6 cents to 15 cents. So you're going to hear all kinds of numbers from all kinds of people in different town hall meetings and whatever. Those are the facts. I specifically had hearings last interim to get those numbers because I would hear people say, well, yeah, I can do it for 3 cents. You can't do it for 3 cents. Crazy. 25 cents to eliminate all property taxes, 15% to eliminate all school taxes, but we can eliminate all school taxes by increasing the homestead exemption from about for $200,000 for everyone. Right now it's $140,000 for under 65, $200,000 for seniors. We get that homestead exemption up to about $400,000. We pretty much wipe it out for every average Texan. And by the way, what I want to do next session, and this is a good bubble, I want to pass the double nickel. I think we'll pass it in the Senate. Hopefully the House will pass it. Hopefully the governor will sign it. I want to pass that, and what's the double nickel? 55. I want to take the freeze on home values today, 65. We get 65, great, my home values are frozen, can never go up. I want to reduce it to 55. I want to take it down to 55. That will save the average homeowner about $10,000 to $15,000 more in the decade between being 55 and 65, and it will remove 3.3 million people off the tax rolls of never having to worry about, not off the tax rolls, the values ever going up again. You know, today, if you're 48 or 49 years old and you're on a home, you say, gosh, I got to wait another almost 20 years before my values are frozen. You only have to wait 5 or 6 or 7. And we need to find a way to help people who are first-time home buyers on their property taxes for the first few years in their homes. Today, the average age of a homeowner in Texas is 58 years of age. The average new homeowner is 38. If we're going to have a growing economy, we have to make housing affordable. We passed a number of bills last session to make housing more affordable, to take away the city rules and regulations that makes it expensive. You have to have a big lot to buy a house. Not everybody needs a big lot to buy a house. We can buy smaller houses, smaller lots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I am focused on making sure school taxes are eliminated for every homeowner in Texas in the next 2 sessions, and we're going to get it done. Just like we got school choice done, like we got rid of abortion, we can do it together, united together, and I look forward to working with TPPF on that. Give me a time. What time is it? 12:57. Okay. I've got 10 minutes to tell you the worst bubble of all, okay? Because I can come out here and be rah, 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 and I can come out here and have fun, as I have in the past. And again, this is not political. This is about policy. Because if Democrats are in charge, guess what? You have nothing to do next year. What would TPPF be doing on policy if Democrats control the state? How can that happen? Lee Wamgans ran a good race, well-funded. President Trump endorsed her. Governor Abbott endorsed her. I endorsed her. Every grassroots person endorsed her. Because Kelly Hancock left, for those of you who don't understand the mechanism here quickly, when he left, it was an open seat, so it was an open election. Anyone could run for it, Republicans, Democrats. One Democrat ran, Lee ran, and another Republican ran. 3 of them. That's a district that in November of 2025, when the president was elected, was it 25? Yes, 25? 24, excuse me. He's been there a year and a half. Goes, you know, when he's doing a heck of a great job, it goes fast. When Biden was there, it seemed like he'd never end, you know? I talked to the president yesterday morning. He always fascinates me. We've talked twice in the last 10 days, and I don't say that to drop names. He talks to, you know, Texas a lot because a lot's going on in Texas. He's very interested in the politics of what's going on right now because he knows America can't exist without Texas being red. And it fascinated me because when he called me yesterday, and it was about a 40-minute phone call, I'm thinking, here's the day he's getting ready to bomb the heck out of Iran. Got a lot on his plate. But that's how important you all are. That's how important Texas is. The world cannot survive without a strong America. And America cannot survive without Texas being red. You can't win the White House with the electoral votes of New York, California, and Texas being in the hands of a blue state. You can't do it. We're at a real key point because what happened in Lee's race? So Trump won her district, the old Kelly Hancock district, by 17 points. Her opponent, the Democrat, was a 33-year-old single guy no one ever heard of. Just slapped his name on the ballot for the hell of it. His name is Taylor Ramette. I mean, I called him. You know, he won. I mean, you know, he has nothing to do right now until the, you know, he would have to win again in November, which Lee's going to beat him in November, with your help. But he got 46% of the vote. An unknown. 46%. The Democrats are angry. They do have Trump syndrome. They don't like what we've done in Texas because all these things I talked about, they're against. They're against your Second Amendment rights. They're for abortion. They were against school choice. They want higher taxes, not lower taxes. Everything all of you in this room are for, they are against. And he got 46% of the vote. She beat the other Republican. Guess what? The other Republican, I won't even mention his name. But John didn't help her. Her Republican opponent refused to endorse her. She lost by 14,000 votes in the runoff. 19,000 Republicans voted for her opponent in the first round. Had he helped her, she wins. She wins. Now, why is that important? Because we have one nasty race, and I'm just going to call it for what it is, for the U.S. Senate, and it troubles me. I've run tough campaigns on policy, but I've never run a campaign on personally attacking anyone. And I'm not blaming Cornyn, and I'm not blaming Paxton. I can blame both of them. But I wish they'd spend the next 5 weeks or 6 weeks, quite frankly, running positive ads on why they should be elected, because it's not helping our party by tearing each other apart. And at the end of the day, and I give a challenge to both of them today, I'm making this challenge today. John Cornyn, if you lose, you need to endorse Ken Paxton and get your voters to support Ken Paxton. And Ken Paxton, if you lose, you need to endorse John Cornyn and get your voters to support John Cornyn. Because if 10 to 15% of either of their sides don't turn out and vote, James Tallarico is going to win. That's the bubble. We've seen it. We've seen it. 74,000 Republicans did not turn out to vote for her, and she lost by 14,000 because they stayed home. It's a red district. So anyone in this room who thinks we're a red state, Abbott can't lose, Patrick can't lose, that's just not right. Now, I think we're going to win. I think we're all going to come together. But we must, after this election, unite behind whoever wins that Senate race. Remember what it was like in 2018 with Beto O'Rourke? Ted Cruz barely got by. Abbott's win margin was less than it was in 14. My win margin was less than it was in 14 because Beto was over there. So this is what you got to process. If Cornyn doesn't support Paxton or Paxton doesn't support Cornyn, and 10 to 15% of their voters don't vote, we lose the Senate seat, which means we could lose the entire Senate. And we've got to get those people who vote for Tallarico with all of his crazy policies and beliefs. We got to convince those people to cross back over and vote for Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick and Dawn Buckingham. So, folks, this is real. With all the wonderful things we've done, and we haven't been perfect, we haven't done it all right, we have more to do. But all the great things you have done to put us in this position. We've only been in power for 23 years. It wasn't until 2003 we had all Republican statewide and a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. America depends on us. We cannot lose if we will unite as one, because people believe in the policies that we passed. That's why we've been winning. That's why Greg Abbott won by 1 million votes, and I won by almost 1 million votes. That's why. It's the policies, and that's why TPPF is so important, and other organizations like TLR and all these other organizations, all of us. We have to come together. So do not take this for granted. Remember the bad bubbles. A lot of good bubbles. Remember the bad bubble. Don't wake up on the day after election in November and say, Patrick was right. Because I don't think we're going to lose. I'm just saying there is a pathway there. I mean, we're going to elect a guy who says God is multiple genders, that there are 6 genders. I mean, it's just crazy stuff. I mean, a guy who ran his 22 campaign when he's running the no meat campaign in Texas, no meat? Is he kidding me? I mean, maybe if he'd eaten a steak sometime in his life, he wouldn't have all these crazy ideas. And they call him a moderate. I even heard Fox say, well, he's, Jasmine Crockett is an extremist, but James Tallarico, he's a moderate pastor. I don't know what church he goes to. But I go to church. I know God. I listen to his voice. Jesus is my Savior. I'm just telling you that I'm going to pray for James Tallarico. Not to win, but actually to read the Bible and see what God has to say. Because if he'll actually read the Bible, listen to what God and Jesus has to say, he won't have a campaign. Because there's no way the Bible supports abortion. There's no way the Bible supports men and ladies' rooms. And then on public policy, he wants to open the border and put out the welcome mat for everyone. Remember, they could have Daffy Duck on the ticket and they still get 43 or 40% of the vote walking in the door. That's about the Democrat base in the state. So he can't get to over 50 unless Cornyn's people or Paxton's people decide to skip the race because they're mad that their guy lost. Get over it. Get over it and come together as one. I'm blessed to be your lieutenant governor. I'm going to run the toughest race I've ever run because I have to prepare. If we have trouble at the top of the ticket to get those people to come over and vote for me. Because that's the question. If they vote for Tallarico, do they come back over and vote for Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick? Who's that voter? Who's that voter? We pulled that off at 18 because there were some people who voted for Cruz. More people voted for me. More people voted for Abbott. But man, that's a tough road to go down. And make no mistake, because of the race that we lost, the Democrats and George Soros will pour hundreds of millions of dollars. We're going to have a tough time holding the Texas House. I think our Senate's in good shape. Take nothing for granted. But I think our Senate's in good shape. But you're going to have to help House members. You're going to have to fight for everything we've accomplished this year. This year. And I'm dedicated to it. I'm going to run a tough campaign. I'm going to run a revolutionary campaign. You're going to see it soon. And I'm not giving up Texas, and I'm not giving up the fight. And I'm here with you all the way. I just need for you to be with us. Thank you, and God bless. Thank you all. Thank you.